But first tonight, I fear we will never be able to have an adult conversation about migration in this country. The political elites and the left-wing media don't want you to have this conversation. It does not fit with the left's narrative, no matter the costs to everyday Aussies. And of course, when you do raise it, you're tarnished as some sort of right-wing nut job. Now, I was astonished at the sheer hypocrisy by Teal Allegra Spender yesterday. She is the member for one of the most affluent electorates in this country, Wentworth, in Sydney's eastern suburbs, which has avoided the pressure of mass migration. Yet she claims, quote, the debate around immigration is being abused and weaponised. Australian citizens have always decided our immigration policy, and for many years, all sides of politics agreed on a non-discriminatory policy shaped by our national interests rather than prejudice. Well, this is an absolute load of nonsense because nobody ever voted for a big Australia, yet here we are living in a big Australia. Multiculturalism and mass migration have in fact been thrust upon us by both sides of politics with no room for debate about the sort of country we want to become. The Teal then went on to claim that disturbing echoes of the racist division of the past have crept into the political mainstream. And there it is, the R word, racism. And this is exactly why the left don't want you to have this debate. They don't care about your concerns about mass migration in Australia. They care more about the people we are bringing in on a daily basis. The biggest threat to this country is the elites and powerful voices who want to downplay our values and way of life under the guise of healthy and sustainable multiculturalism. In fact, politicians across the divide have quite literally killed off the great Australian dream through reckless policies like immigration and net zero, while retreating from debate out of fear of being taunted with the R word. So thank goodness for Liberal MP Andrew Hastie. In a social media post this week called The Real Reason You Can't Afford the Home, he said, quote, we are starting to feel like strangers in our own home. Labor talk about a housing supply crisis, but this is a housing demand crisis driven by unsustainable immigration. It's that simple. Yet Allegra Spender demonised him, likening him to a British white supremacist.
Enoch Powell, who was a white supremacist in Britain, in his famous Rivers of Blood speech, used the expression, we're starting that people were made strangers in their own country. And this language from Andrew Hastie certainly reflects, either intentionally or unintentionally, some of the language of that very famous speech.
Now, these are not far-right views, nor are they extreme views. In fact, the same expression was used recently by UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, one of the wokest, most left-wing politicians of our time.
Now, in a diverse nation like ours, and I celebrate that, these rules become even more important. Without them, we risk becoming an island of strangers, not a nation that walks forward together.
The reality is Andrew Hastie is not wrong, and good on him for having the courage and conviction to say it like it is. Allegra loves migration because it doesn't apply to her. According to the 2021 census, of the 146,000 residents in the electorate of Wentworth, almost 58% of the electorate was born in Australia, followed by England on 7.3% and South Africa at 3.9%. Hardly an example of diversity when you compare it to, say, Blaxland in the southwest of Sydney. Of the more than 188,000 residents there, 43% are born in Australia, 8% in Vietnam, 6.6% in China and 6% in Lebanon, while Blaxland has the biggest Arabic-speaking community in Australia. So the Champagne Teal in Wentworth has a clear majority of Australian-born citizens, therefore lacking in the need for infrastructure and housing to keep up with the demand of mass migration. I mean, how would Allegra feel about migrants being parachuted into the million-dollar homes and high-rise towers in her electorate, perhaps? Oh, wait, Poor migrants can't afford it. And gee, the West could sure do with some reprieve. Almost 3 out of 4 people in Western Sydney want less migration to help free up more housing. Now, we know more than 1.1 million migrants have come into this country since Labor was elected. In fact, March this year saw massive immigration numbers. Net overseas migration was 110,000, well above recent averages. And the issues that Andrew Hastie is talking about are everyday issues, worrying everyday people, especially in the middle of a cost of living crisis. It's not racist to have a conversation about mass migration when our housing and infrastructure is under pressure. It's not racist to have the conversation when everyday Aussies are locked out of the housing market. It's not racist to have the conversation when the face of Australia has changed and our social cohesion is buckling. And look, the public broadcaster was just as bad. Their headline today, Andrew Hastie taunted over claim that higher immigration is making Australians strangers in our own home. Over at The Guardian, they went with future Liberal leader or party disruptor Andrew Hastie and the rise of the MAGA right, claiming that the WA MP offers a divisive brand of politics. This is nothing more than a political attack on Andrew Hastie, and all because he dared to challenge the left's narrative. The Home Affairs Minister Tony Burke professed modern Australia must be strange to a Liberal Party that stubbornly refuses to enter the 21st century. Well, what exactly does the 21st century look like for Labor? Because the current 21st century Australia is anti-Israel protests week in, week out, flags of terror groups being waved in the streets, synagogues firebombed and the Aussie flag set alight. And the one time Australia fights back at the recent marches for Australia, everyday Aussies are labelled racist. Perhaps if they'd rocked up to the march with a portrait of the Ayatollah of Iran and chanted death to the IDF, perhaps the left would have had a more favourable and understanding position. But look, Allegra Spender can of course wipe her hands of the cultural tension that sometimes comes from mass migration because it does not directly apply to her electorate. Andrew Hastie went on to say the Liberal Party will be in exile for a long time until we act in the interests of Australian people. That means getting immigration to a sustainable level. If we don't act, we can expect anger and frustration. We might even die as a political movement. So be it. What is the point of politics if you're not willing to fight for something? And this should be a vote winner for the Liberals. A Resolve poll last week showed support for Pauline Hanson's One Nation has surged to a record high of 12%, particularly off the back of migration issues. The longer the Liberal Party equivocates on this, they risk ending up like the Conservative Party in the UK, all but dead in the water and being toppled by Nigel Farage's reform. Migration is a vote-driving issue. Our values and way of life are worth protecting. And the sooner the elites and left-wing media wake up to this, the better.